Good afternoon, friends of the media. Today, the Committee on Members' Interests in relation to the complaints against Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen and Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, we have already submitted the report to the full Council. As to what I've said at the meeting of the Council, I'm sure you have already got a copy of my speech. On this occasion, the CMI carried out an investigation into the cases. I think this is the first time that we carried out an investigation into the cases, because previously we were only at the preliminary consideration stage. But in this case, we moved into the investigation stage. And in our report, we have truthfully reflected how we have handled the complaints. I think you've all got a copy of our report and you must have read it. So why don't we, for the sake of time, as I don't know when the quorum bell will ring, so for the interest of time management, myself as well as Emily Lau, Deputy Chair of the committee, will be happy to take questions from you. Before you do speak, please identify yourself and the organization that you represent. Please switch on the mic. Just now, a member said that the findings of the CMI are such that as long as a member can do the following afterwards, that is, got somebody to say that the donation is for the political party rather than to the individual members, then that will be fine. In other words, the declaration system will be rendered meaningless. Do you agree with such a statement? And then after such a lengthy investigation, the votes were 3 against 3. So despite the lengthy investigation, it seems that it doesn't yield anything. So do you think that it's effective? As to whether information being provided afterwards so as to prove that the donation isn't for personal use, I think in our report we have already handled this matter. We have addressed this matter. Of course, we haven't got any specific conclusion on this point. It's up to the public to pass a judgment on this. As to your second question, yes. The 7 members in the committee have already put in their best endeavors. We spent quite a lot of time, and for the relevant information, we examined and re-examined the information, and we arrived at our own opinion. And the details have been reflected in the report. For the Committee on Members' Interests, well, the setting up of the committee is for a very important purpose. That is, for both the pro-establishment camp as well as the pan-democrats, or I put it this way, for both the majority members and the members from the minority camps. We hope that neither would be treated unfairly. And we hope that we come to a conclusion only when we have the majority's view. As to whether this can really be done, I'm sure the public can find an answer in the report. Emily, do you have anything to add? I do not agree with what the reporter has just said. This is because we did find something in our investigation. The scope is a narrow one, that is, whether a member has received donations in his own capacity. And the 2 members have made it clear, and we haven't seen any other evidence to show that it is to the contrary. They have made it clear that the money wasn't for them personally. Rather, it was for the political party that they belonged to, respectively. In the speech of the chair, it has been made clear that members gave evidence under oath. And then for the members involved, in particular those belonging to the Labour Party, we have found them to be credible witnesses. So this is quite unlike what this reporter had said, that is, they only gave information afterwards. Well, I think it isn't quite like that. It's a matter of giving evidence under oath. So I hope you will understand the terms of reference of the committee, as well as the subject matter before us. So I don't think that the system doesn't work. If somebody is so bold as to tell lies while giving evidence under oath and he is to be exposed, I'm sure the consequences will be very serious. And I also think that nobody among us thought that anybody was telling lies under oath. And so this allegation isn't substantiated. And I hope that please do not have the impression that this can be repeated or this can be done. Otherwise, there will be serious consequences. Well, as I have said, that's the view of some members, not the view of all the members. I think this point is brought up in the report. Now, there are two cases. In both cases, the voting results were still 3 against 3. Now, we have got 3 from the Pan-Democrats, 3 from the pro-establishment camp. So does it mean that this will be the rule forever? That is, the public will think that rather than getting an objective finding, the political parties involved will predetermine the result, and then it will not command any credibility. I have said that no, people won't get the impression that the majority's view will prevail. I mean, the view of the majority party will prevail. I think we all give people the impression that our attitude has that of being fair, just, and open. I think as to whether we've really discharged our duties, I'm sure you can read the report, and then the public can confirm whether this has been achieved or not. I think as far as the mechanism or the system is concerned, like our counterparts in other legislatures, I think we are similar. I've already said that we knew what we had to look into. We've got the relevant witnesses. They gave evidence under oath. There's no evidence to show that anybody was telling lies. The money was it wasn't that somebody received donation in their personal capacity. There was no declaration of interest, and therefore contravention of the rules of procedure, and we let them go, let them off. I don't know why you have made such an allegation. So unless the money has been proved to be donated to a member personally, and yet he disguises as something for the political party, well, for the international practice, we have got the Committee on Members' Interests or the PAC. I just want to say that they always have the opposition leader being the chair.
Made by unionist legislator Wong Kwok Hing, who said that he feels very disappointed at the verdict of the committee because it seems that as long as you can ask a donor to give a declaration after everything's been exposed by the media, you can get away with any donations made payable to a legislator himself or herself. And he said the system would be rendered, the declaration system would be rendered useless. How would you respond to this criticism?
I have just replied to these people. When they came to the committee meeting, they spoke under oath. It is a very serious matter if you can prove that somebody had lied under oath. And I don't know whether anybody has evidence to show that these people who appear before us have lied. So if we have no evidence, we have to take what they say at its value. And also we have received no other evidence to show otherwise. So I don't know what Mr. Wong Kwok Hing is talking about. If he thinks that some people have lied, then ask him to produce the evidence. I thought we still have the rule of law in Hong Kong, and people should not just make such remarks without evidence.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a word about evidence for Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen and long hair in relation to the acceptance of checks. I think the check was written out in the name of Lee Cheuk-yen personally, without the name of the political party. The same is true for Leung Kwok Hong's case. What about the key person, that is Mark Simon? Why haven't you summoned him to appear as a witness? Without his attendance, I think the investigation is not as complete as what we expected. Do you agree? Well, for the case of calling Mark Simon, the voting results were 3 against 3 as to whether he should be called as a witness. And I follow the rules of procedures. That is, for an issue which hasn't got more than half of the members voting yes, I need to cast a negative vote. So on the point of whether Mark Simon could have come as a witness, as to why he could not come or he has not come, I think the report has already addressed this point. Again, I leave it in the hands of the public to judge as to why he hasn't come or he could not have come. Well, basically, we couldn't reach a consensus. That's the message in the report. I think the main point is about Jimmy Lai. No one queried that the money has come from Jimmy Lai. Jimmy Lai also came to give evidence under oath. He said that the money was donated by him. Of course, we asked why the checks were payable to a person rather than a political party. He said that it was Mark Simon who did it. Now, Mark Simon did it, and then the donor also admitted that he donated the money to the political party. We accepted it. He also gave evidence under oath, and other Labour Party members also gave evidence under oath, and then they said that they agreed that the money was given to the political party. If I may also ask this question, it was a case of 3 against 3. Whether the case was substantiated, whether Mark Simon should be summoned as a witness again, the voting results were 3 against 3. So, Ms. Lau, would you agree with me that in a way it may be said that the Pan-Democrats are trying to protect Lee Cheuk-yen and Leung Kwok Hong? Usually, you set a very high moral standard for the public officers, but on this matter, does it show that to a slight extent there are double standards? That is, they are suspected, but you insist that they are innocent. We act on evidence, so it isn't simply that somebody is suspected and then he will be convicted. I made the point 2 times already. Now this is the 3rd time I say so. Witnesses came and they gave evidence, and on that basis we try to establish whether there was a breach of rules or procedures. So we have to find out whether money was accepted in the capacity as a Legislative Council member. If that's the case, and the failure to declare would result in a contravention. But then if the donation has been received not personally but for the sake of the political party, then there's no contravention. So that's the standard that we have adopted. Now, you talked about protecting them. It implies that you think that they are guilty. If we think that they are guilty, does it mean that we believe that the witnesses who have given evidence on oath have been telling lies? So in the report, can you find the evidence anywhere? We've set out everything that we have, and so we must all act on evidence only. As to whether donation was received, well, they admitted it themselves. There's no need to investigate into that point. The point is whether they have received the money in the capacity as a LegCo member. We've examined the evidence, and it shows the contrary. So where where can we find evidence to show that they are not telling the truth? So, gentlemen, please tell us what we have omitted.
We think that Jimmy Lai had already made the point. Do you mean that Mark Simon will say that all the money was not given by Jimmy Lai? But we think that Jimmy Lai has given the money. He had made that point as well. Yes, you can see, but then you don't know whether there is anything wrong, and you are saying that we are wrong. We told you that Jimmy Lai said that the money was given by him to the party, and you think that that is not acceptable. I would like to remind you that in para 2.37 and para 3.35 of the report, there were some of the members' views presented clearly. So there are different views, and also there are some doubts. I would like to clarify this point. Next, please. There is one serious allegation that the interest income on the benefit received has not been dealt with clearly. But then we have asked Labour Party members, and they said that the amount of interest only was a few dozen dollars. So how much money are we talking about? Have you asked the question? Yes, that is in the verbatim report. The amount of money involved is very small, so there was nothing done to further follow up. Yes, that was in the verbatim report. And in the process, he also said that in the process, there was other investment or deposit. But then those deposits are not related to this case. That is the member's explanation. But then there is one thing for sure, that in the evidence, the money given back to the Labour Party did not include interest. So he had returned the $500,000 and $1 million. And based on the evidence available, this point was made. We have questioned this, and there was a discussion. Yes, this was a question put to him. He said that there was a small amount of money. Later on, he gave us information, and we looked into the accounts. Nothing was done to that amount of money. It was not transferred. Are we talking about a few $1 million being interest, or a few dozen? So it's up to the public to consider. Just now, that lady said a few dozen dollars. So no one said that the money had to be returned because the amount was very small. That point was made, but then the discussion paused there. I'm from TVB. Mr. Yip Kwok Him, I would like to ask you. Now, you voted against because of the rules of procedure. What is your personal stance? According to rules of procedures, is it true that you can abstain instead of voting against? Now, in our report, para 2.3 and 3.36, I already expressed my views. But I must exercise and act according to the rules in the rules of procedures that I have to vote against. So this point is clear. Can I abstain? Well, this is not possible because I do have the responsibility according to the rules so that a vote in which there is not a majority cannot become or cannot be passed. So As chairman of the committee, this is something I must act according to, so I must vote against. This does not only apply to this committee. All chairmen of all other committees have to do it in the same way. No, that's not true. Only in specific committees. And this committee on members' interest has to abide by this rule. For other panels and those committees, there is no such rule. And what about your position? I have stated my position very clearly. Today, I am the chairman of the committee, so I have to explain to you what I as chairman have to do. So I just have to tell you the procedures in the committee. My personal opinion is expressed in the speech I read out. Sorry. I'm from Oriental Daily. Now the report is released and Mr. Wong Kwok Hing said that the direction of investigation is fundamentally wrong because the member had accepted money. So he had accepted money, that's the truth. And this is a fundamental fault. And now this decision has created an undesirable precedent. So as long as a member can find somebody and said that he only received or accepted the money for another party, then he could go away with it. So is it better to have independent people to do the investigation? Now concerning the rules of procedures of this committee, is there any room for improvement through this investigation or this incident? And also concerning problems arising from it, I think this is up to future review. I personally cannot give my opinion because this has to be discussed by the committee. As regards the present procedures, I can say that the committee follows exactly the rules of procedures. I think Mr. Wong Kwok Hing's remarks are really ignorant and ridiculous. He should read the rules of procedures and our powers. It is not true that if a member has accepted payment, then he has committed a fault. He should not say that that member involved had found someone to take up the responsibility. Is this remark something that a LegCo member should utter? Now, if you refer to past debate records, most members were against. In fact, I was in the minority who agreed. So you can refer back to remarks made by Mr. Wong Kwok Hing. Now, I will not agree to the Deputy Chairman's criticism against Wong Kwok Hing. Any councillor has his right to express his views. He can express his feelings. So I do not want to comment on this as chairman of the committee. I just want to say that the deputy chairman had only voiced her personal opinion. I'm from Now TV. Emily Lau, you just said that it is not necessary to take evidence from Mark Simon because Jimmy Lai had already made the point. But then Jimmy Lai said that it's executed by his assistant, so he was not in the know. So, Ms. Lau, what are the justifications for not needing to call upon Mark Simon to give evidence? Okay, let me explain first. We're saying that we need to confirm whether someone has paid money to a member and whether the money is meant for that councillor or the party. Now, that person and related people have already given evidence that he has paid money, and the receiver has also confirmed that he had received the money. But then the money is meant for the political party, so we think that this point is clear. But then the person who wrote the check was Mark Simon. But then this is instructed by Jimmy Lai. I won't say that Jimmy Lai had created this person, Mark Simon. The money belongs to Jimmy Lai. Jimmy Lai asked him to give money to that political party. Jimmy Lai had not denied this point, so we think that this point is credible. Mr. Ip Kok Him, concerning the interest on $500,000. Okay, this time is 500,000. The interest accrued is a small amount. Next time, perhaps we are talking about 5 million or 10 million, 50 million. So is it true that this point of doubt doesn't need to be followed up just because the amount is small? Can you let him answer this point first? I think, based on many councillors' standard of ethics, it is not a difference between a few $10 or a few million. Okay, the councillor had pocketed the money. This is problematic. This point is clear. I think this point is very clear already, not only my personal opinion. There are criticisms against C.Y. Leung on more or less the same point, so it's not up to whether the amount is big or not. Then why didn't you follow up as to whether he has pocketed the interest? Yes, we have tried to follow up, but he has made no explanation. The fact is he had not returned the interest to the party, and this point is disclosed by the relevant bills or invoices or papers. The check shows the principal only. There is no payment of the interest. I'm from One Way Pao. I would like to follow up about Mr. Lee Cheuk-Yan's accepting interest. Now the fact is, Lee Cheuk-Yan had not returned everything. He had only returned the 1.5 million to Labour Party. This is a fact, even though the interest only amounted to a few $10. So he did not repay principal plus interest to the party. He did not transfer the whole amount from his personal account to Labour Party's account. So is this, does this have to do with the members' ethics standard, or does this involve LegCo's monitoring of the member? Now, for our committee, our terms of reference is that we need to check whether he has registered. If it is against the if it is against 3A of the registration system, then that's the point that we are focusing on. Now, there is this issue of interest. So will that lead to another issue? I think it is not the main point of investigation by our committee. But we do have the responsibility to disclose such information during our investigation process. Different people have different value judgment. There are many investigations about personal interest. Some adopt very stringent standards, but this is up to society to judge. Please try to understand the terms of reference of our committee. We are not investigating members' ethical standards. In the past, we discussed many times whether the terms of reference should be widened or whether outsiders should be asked to deal with the case. However, you can check many members were against. Actually, all were against. So, as a result, this very narrow standard was adopted as to whether a member had received or accepted interest in his personal capacity. If he accepted the payment for another person, then still it is not problematic. Whether this can be widened, well, I agree, but then it was voted down by a big majority. You can trace back members' remarks expressed at that time. As regards interest, just now we said that in the meetings, this point was asked and answers were given. No one followed up. If this was a big issue, then there would have been a lot of discussion and comments. But then things paused there. Questions were asked, but then the amount was very small. That's the point made at that time. On this point, the Pan-Democrats did not ask this question. So I would like to raise this point for your information. But that was asked by the committee. We sat there together. About the verbatim report, I'm from Tai Kung Pao. About the verbatim report, referring to Leung Kwok Hong's evidence, he seemed to be quite uncooperative. And for the $500,000 donations, he only issued receipts afterwards. Do you find this problematic? And Mr. Fan Kwok Wai only participated in a very limited way. Well, we are not Mr. Fan Kwok Wei. Why he's not here? You can ask him. Why did you ask this question on a person who is not here? So we can only express on contents in this report. If you have any question or comments in relation to a certain member's participation or expression, I think it is more appropriate for you to approach him directly.
你第一個問題係咩問題？
What was your first question? Please give him the microphone. Please speak into the mic. Was it true? Was it that Mr. Leung Kwok Hong was very uncooperative at the meetings, and he only issued the receipt afterwards? I think this point was covered in the report. I'm sure the public can come to a judgment. That is, it was only said afterwards, it was only returned afterwards, and the evidence was only produced afterwards. All such matters have been covered in the report. As to whether it is acceptable to the public, I think I've addressed this point time and again. Now, the main purpose of the report is as follows. We'd like to tell you about the investigation. And we have also shared our findings with you. We have a verbatim report, and you can see that in the course of it, as to what extent members of the CMI participated, I'm sure you can find the answer in the report. And you can also approach individual members for their comments. Yes, it will be difficult for us to say anything on their behalf. I think what is most important to us, whether you have been acting in accordance with the rules of procedures, if you have received donation as a lawmaker. Now, donations have been received, but not in the capacity as a lawmaker. Well, others have said that that isn't the case. I think what is important is to examine the evidence. The rules of procedures empowered us to find out why money has been received without registration. Well, it is found that the money isn't for the member personally. Since that is the case, then of course there's no need to register. Like I've received donations from many citizens. They've asked me to spend the money on the ward office. If it is alleged that lies have been told, but do you have evidence? Now, we didn't invoke our powers to summons the witnesses to come. They have come upon invitation, and they've all given evidence under oath. I just want to say that in our report, we haven't actually said that those who spoke under oath haven't told lies. Are you saying that they are telling lies? They have told lies? I just want to say that the report didn't say so.
Two questions. The first is, why did the committee find it unnecessary to invite Mark Simon to testify? And do you think the declaration system or mechanism for lawmakers need to be revised to prevent these sort of controversies from happening again?
As I said, we felt that the most important thing is for Mr. Lai, Mr. Jimmy Lai, to give evidence to show that he has given the money, and the money is not for the legislators concerned, but for their political parties. So if that's the case, and there is no evidence to the contrary, we think that is adequate. Sorry?
For the declaration system or mechanism for the lawmakers, do you think it needs to be revised to prevent these sort of controversies from happening again?
Well, I think the declaration, as it stands, is quite adequate because it's actually quite limited. It's limited to a member receiving an advantage for himself. If the member receives something, but it's not for himself, he does not need to declare. So I think that is okay. I have no problem with that. But as for whether we should investigate into other misconduct and so on, LegCo has debated this many times. I myself am in favor of having a code of conduct or having some third party to investigate maybe a retired judge or something. But most of the members of the council has disagreed. So we are stuck.
主席啊，今次位啊，我想問一問。
How many would like to ask questions? What about those who have already asked questions? 4 have raised their hands, so I will confine that to 4. Can I ask as well? Well, Chairman, as a result of the restrictions of the powers, and also there are people who are deliberate to afford protection, what are you saying? Don't interrupt me. You always want to threaten the reporters. Now, this is a press conference. Ms. Lau, please let me finish with my questions. Would it be because of the powers and also the restricted powers, and also someone would like to protect the other members, and so you cannot move on with the investigation? Chairman, do you think that there are things that are suspicious, and so you would like to hand over the report to the law enforcement agencies, or it is in the public domain, and so they can read the report on the internet? We have no responsibility to refer the report to any law enforcement agency. Our report has already been made public by presenting it at a Legislative Council meeting. The public can visit our website to read the report. As to whether there are suspicious points, as the chair of the committee, I don't think it is right for me to talk about my personal views in this regard while I'm in the capacity of the chair in chairing this press conference. Now, both cases cannot be substantiated because the rules of procedures say that members can need only declare benefits received for his own capacity. Do you think that there is a need to tighten up the rules so that there is a need for registration and declaration as well for donations to their political parties as well? Well, I think the committee will have a discussion in the light of what you have said. That is, citizens or the media may have certain views, and of course it is up to the committee to come to a decision. At this point, I don't think I can say yes or no as to whether there is a need to review the matter. But personally speaking, I also agree that this is a problem. Standard. I think many reporters have already asked a question about the interest income. It amounts to dozens of dollars. I want to know, yes, interest was mentioned in your process of taking evidence, but probably it isn't within the scope of investigation because you are interested in finding out whether the money was donated for the members personally or for their political parties. So I want to know whether the question of interest falls outside the purview of your committee's investigation. Well, we did try to find out about the interest income. We asked whether the money as well as the interest had been used for investigation, and then it was a question answered saying that there wasn't such a matter, and our main concern is whether the donation was for the member personally. Had that been the case, then there would be a need for registration. So as to whether the interest should be given or should be returned, I'm sure it is a matter for his own personal judgment. Whether there is a breach of the law or whether there is another complaint arising from that, we haven't touched on that. Well, I think the principle has been returned to the party. For the interest, it may be dozens of dollars or tens of cents, but then that sum of interest still remains in their account. I think as of now, the money is still in his personal account, so the benefit goes to his own pocket. So I want to know whether you would count this as receipt of benefit without declaration. Well, in the report, it is clear that this isn't the issue. If what you have said is right, then you would have been established. That is, got the money, no declaration, then it's a breach. Our secretariat and our legal advisor were present. Had it been found that there was a breach of the rules of procedures, I'm sure we'll be reminded to follow up. At the time this question was asked, we were told what happened, and I don't think at the time anybody thought that there was a breach, and yet the member didn't care about that, and the member being complained was let off. As the chair has already said, we were looking at that sum of money. We would like to know whether the money was received and then returned to the party. Now, there is still some money outstanding. I don't think anybody told us that it was a clear case of breach. I think we did ask how much that amounted to, and we were told that it's a small sum, and we just dropped the matter. Please use the mic. So does it mean that nobody thought that it was a problem? So at least at that moment, no one raised this point and no one asked this question in the taking of evidence. The question is in the negative. Our focus was on whether the money has been returned and whether the money was donated to the member personally. As to whether another benefit, another advantage has been received, it goes outside the scope of our investigation. Had we not been concerned, we would not have asked the question, that is whether the money was put to investigation again. If we have received, when we receive other investigations of other complaints, of course we will see whether there's a need to investigate. I would like to ask a question about the receipt of money. According to the report, Lee Cheuk-yin and Long Hair received money via a check written in their personal name. They had it in their accounts for a long time. It was exposed in the media, and then they returned the money to the political parties. Now you have an investigation, you find that it is fine, so are you being lenient on them? They can be allowed to pocket the money in their own accounts. It is only when exposed then they return the money to the political party. Why haven't you followed this up? Well, the committee hasn't come to any conclusion. If you read the report seriously, then you know. What we have done is that we have shown you the final voting results. You can see that the number of members in favor and number of members against the issue were equal. So that's the reality. And we have been following strictly the procedures. And so we have shown you the final outcome. So you can actually come to the conclusion that it's fine, there's no problem at all. As the chair of the committee, I don't think there was such a conclusion of the committee. I hope you will understand this point clearly. The other members of the Labour Party told us clearly that they were aware of the matter, so it wasn't just a single person's story. Well, it appears that you have your own views according to what you have said in your questions. All right, thank you.